Okay, good evening. So, today I would like to talk about how to transform a problem into a solution, first of all. And then, once we solve the problem and we made a solution, I want to start perhaps monetizing it or at least offer it to many more people. And the problem that I have today is playing Dungeons and Dragons. Now, Dungeons and Dragons, which you can probably observe here. These are all my books, all my manuals. I've been playing for more than 20 years, and the problem that I have playing online is that we don't have a proper way to roll the dice. Seems like a simple problem, but it is quite difficult. There are many things that you can use, but they seem extremely complicated. So complicated that now I'm thinking of creating my own system. There are a couple of things that we need to take care of. And for example, we need to do it on a server because we really don't trust each other. So we need to make it happen on a neutral ground. So let's begin. Now, to begin, I really want to go and start from, not from zero. So everybody probably has in a way at least a few maybe boilerplates that people use. So I have a very simple one that I'm going to be using. So is this my basic node which I'm going to be using. So let's have a look at it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the proper thing and actually create a repo for this. So let's make it happen. I'm going to say plus, I want to import the repository. Importing a repository is like forking it. So you're basically saying, I want to use an existing one, I want to make a new copy of it. So let's do that, import the repository. Which repository do you want to import? That's a good question. So I want to use this, my basic code. So I'm going to here and copy and paste. Then I go back and do import repository. There. I'm going to call this Dicemaster. Sounds good enough. Begin the import. And now this is actually gonna take a little bit. So I know that this is gonna take a little bit, so I am probably just going to pause it, and I'll see you in a few minutes, or in your relative time in a few seconds. Good news, it's complete. So let's go and have a look. Okay, so this is my repo, it's nice and clean. I guess let's go and clone it. So I'm gonna make it into a new one. I'm gonna create, say it should be readable, but I think I might just make it one step larger. There you go. That should solve the problem, I believe. Okay, so git clone. Cloning into Dicemaster, like the name. As always, one day I will reset this password. Okay, done. Have it ready. So let's have a look. What am I gonna do? So cd Dicemaster, and now I think if I do this code dot, because okay, I might just do it the normal easy way. Oh, actually forgot to import it, so I have to do it on the spot. Let's see. There you go, there's my code there. And just perfect. Okay, just Okay, let's go. I'm just gonna run it in my Visual Studio Code. Okay, I need to at least go and look at the proper folder. Let's have a look. What would we call it? Dicemaster. Dicemaster. Here it is. Open it. Okay, so let's have a look what's in here. So this is really just a simple Node Express. So nothing much to do here, and just a simple web page. env, a page says welcome to my cloud, and some style which I'm not really using at the moment. Let's do the usual npmi. All right, so let's have a look on how do we actually go and solve the problem. So we need to create a random function to generate the number. Now, so that means that we definitely need a button, because we're going to call this. Just going to call it a random number for now, just to make it simple. I'm going to give this an ID equal random button. Save this. Then I'm going to go to my env. So in here, I'm going to do the usual binding to that button. So the ID for that was random button. I say click. When I click, I want to do function. What do I want to do? Let's see if everything works first of all. And let's just say console. Actually, I need somewhere to just put stuff. So I think I have bootstrap here. So I can make this a class row. And I'm going to put this into a class row as well, just to keep things one tiny bit tighter than complete mess. Here I'm going to create a little span. ID equal span text. I'm going to say nothing at the beginning. So when I click that, I want to change the text. So I'm going to say span text dot text. I'm going to say just say test now. So let's see if this works. So let's go back to web browser. Oh, we're not running it yet. So notmon server.js should work now. Go back to my browser. So this was in localhost. Okay, so we have something, and we click it and it does work. Great to begin with. Now, the next part, how are we actually going to do the number? So, randomness. Now, you would think that randomness is something simple, something very simple. Let's have a look. JavaScript, I'm going to write JS random number between integers. Let's have a look. And we can probably just go and use this function. I think there was a better function, a simpler one. Whatever. We can just use this. Math random, but math floor. Okay, yeah, well, I'm just going to go and use this. No point in getting something more difficult. Now, the problem that you guys should think about is, how do you create randomness in a place where randomness doesn't actually exist? Our computer, by definition, can only do 1 plus 0, 0 plus 0, 1 plus 1, or 0 plus 1. So it's 100% deterministic. Now, normally, if you take the simplest way of achieving this, a computer may use the CPU cycle, which is probably the most random thing, because at some stage the CPU will just go and say, just tell me which cycle you are. I'm going to use that as a random number. So that's not truly random. It's just picking something that looks random. When we say random, if I say, if you need to roll a dice, for as much as I can replicate my actions, I can't really replicate the same action 100%. I'm human, so it's going to be different, my first action to my second action. No matter, if I clap my hands, the second clap is going to be different. For as much as I try to make it a similar, it's going to be tiny changes. So it is actually a very difficult problem. Normally, what I use is random.org, and they actually explain that they don't use a normal simple way. They have something very complex behind. And guess what? They actually made a paid service for this, which is used by a lot of companies, for example, for lotteries. And so, yeah, they just generate numbers. And they have actually a number of papers describing how they do it, how they achieve higher level of randomness. So, yeah, random.org, I've been using it for at least 11 years now. But anyway, let's go back one. So now we have a function. We know how to do the random number. So let's just copy that and go back to our code. Let's have a look. So now the function that we're going to write can actually live outside of this. So bar random number equal function. And I should have put this within the graphs before. I'm going to say here max. I'm going to pack some max number. So I have my function now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call that function. So random number, I'm going to pass the max number I want is 10. And now let's give it a go again. Browser. Let's have a look. A hello world application. I need to reload it. Okay, so it's generating the random number. Now, let's go and make a few changes now, because actually in Dungeons and Dragons we use a lot of dice. We use D20, which has 20 faces, D6, D4, D10, depending on what you're doing. For example, if you are hitting with a double axe, that would be a D12. If you're hitting with a short bow, that would be a D6 in damage. Bigger the weapon, bigger the damage. So how are we going to do that? Well, we need more dice, so to say. And this time I'm going to call this, let's say, D4. I'm going to call this D6. I'm going to call this D20. So I'm going to give it different IDs. So this is going to be the D4 button, and then I'm going to have the D6 button, and then I'm going to have the D20 button. Okay, done. So now let's go and attach them. So how can I do this part? Well, the simplest way is that you just go and copy and paste. So this will become D4. This will become D6. And this will become D20. Let's have a look. Oh, oops. I forgot to change. This is the changes that I have made on the actual application. I created more buttons. So I just copied and pasted it really. I changed the ID of the button so I can actually hook them up. And then I created functions and attached each function to that button. So for now, I just made it in a very simplistic way. I didn't do anything more difficult than this. So let's have a look. Let's give it a go. What it looks like. So okay, I have a D4, I have a D6, and I have a D20. Okay, cool. So now I can properly play at home if I want to, which is great. Let's have a look. And I can still generate just classic random. Oh no, the problem here is that they're still sending the wrong numbers now. So I just need to go and modify this, which is my max. So that's for a D4, 6 for a 6, and 20 for this. Let's have a look again. Sure, I mean, this is quite simple. Okay, I'm terrible with rolls now. Okay, so now we have this issue. This application will work as long as we are all here. But this is not how it should work, because this event should happen on the server, not on my local machine. On my local machine, I can go and cheat, so to say. So I need to make this happen in a neutral ground, which is my ground truth. If you think about a bidding mechanism, for example, like eBay. So eBay, there's a server and everybody bids on the server. And then that message gets broadcasted to everybody. So we're gonna do the same here. Why we don't do it locally? Because that only exists locally. It doesn't make sense. So you need to make it happen on the server, because as a client, as a person on my web browser, I can't go and change the code on the server, but I can change the code on my local machine. So even if I'm looking at a web page, I can actually go and change the code, which is why our ground truth must exist on the server, so that we know that that function gets called over there only. So this function here, kind of really not that useful at the moment. So let's rewrite it var remote role. And this function is going to be still taking a max function, a max value, and it's gonna call the server. So it's gonna be $.get. Let's say it's gonna call .role. It's gonna pass some data. So the data is going to be number equal max. So we're passing a piece of information that has to be called number, and it's got max in it. It's telling me I have an issue. Why is it an issue? Var remote role, equal function, sorry. My bad. And now we need a callback. So the callback will be function result. Result is what we want to get out of it. And then we need to do a couple of things here. What do we need to do? Now we just want to go and change this, the span text. Now, this is something that you will need to understand. I'll show you very quickly as well. Console.log. I just want to show you what happens and why we do certain things. Okay, so what we're saying here is going to call the function and then console log the result. So let's just change the default button instead. So we can say that theoretically we should just need to change this, which is the remote role. Okay, remote role, and once this has happened, go and change the text. So that should not have changed. Logically, this is correct, but you'll find out it's not. So now let's go and change the server, because we don't have that endpoint. So let's create that endpoint get. We decided to call it role. Let's take a function, request and response. Var number request dot query dot number, which is what we're getting from the data that is coming in. And then we need to actually go and copy the function that we had before. We can just go and copy this random number. We're going to have this on the server this time. I'm going to put it up here. It's not the perfect place, I have to say. This function generates a random number. Now, I'm just putting a comment because it's good common sense. Um, but realistically, if you're working in a team, we assume we need to find a good balance. In this case, this function doesn't really need a comment because it's very self-explanatory. So if it's like that, don't comment it. It's just wasting time, relatively. So you should comment when it's not self-explanatory. Especially if you give it a proper name, like var random number, you probably expect it to generate a random number and return it. So it should be nice and easy. Okay, so we have a number here. Then we're gonna call the random number. Random number var rolled equal random number, and we're gonna say the ceiling is the number that we passed. You know what? I'm just gonna make this a little bit more easy to understand. So the number max, which is one that we passed. Okay, and then we're going to response dot send. Now we need to put this in an object. So max number. Sorry, not max number. So rolled number is rolled. Okay, so this function is a request and a response. From the request, we get the number, and then we use that number to generate a random number, and then we return that number to the user. So let's go and try that. Now, I am very confident that this will work partially. I already know there's something that is not going to work. So I'm going to be ready for that. Let's reload this, and let's bring up the console so that you can see exactly what is happening. Okay, so let's get ready. Let's see what happens when we click. Well, I'm not clicking it though. Okay, so as you can see, this is rolling the number, so we're getting it back. So you can actually see it here that the number is getting there. You can check the network as well, and you can see that all the communication is happening properly. So you can see that they're all happening, they're all there. We're getting the number back. So it is there. Now the problem that we have is, why isn't this updating? Why isn't this updating? I'll show you why. This is the magic of working in an asynchronous environment. So let's go back to here. And let's have a look at this function. So JavaScript is asynchronous. What does asynchronous mean? Asynchronous means that the function gets called and the code doesn't get stopped. You can't stop the code. So this function here, this function random number, remote roll, is asynchronous, meaning that you're calling a function which is happening somewhere. So you don't have a knowledge of when it's going to be finished. You don't even have knowledge of whether or not that function will finish. So you cannot block the function. So what happens? This is doing exactly what it's meant to do. Is when you click it, it's calling the function, but it's just not waiting for it. So it's putting what? The value into it, which the value is nothing. So the value is just nothing is happening there. So what do we need to do? We need to go and put this in the callback. This whole part. So not this. So this we need to extrapolate it. So we need to change this part, which also actually makes our code much clearer as well. Okay, so console log, and there you go. So I'm gonna remove this. So I'm gonna give it a go. I'm gonna go back to my browser view. I'm gonna reload it. And did I reload it? It's not working because I missed one part. Let's see. Yeah, I didn't actually fix this part. So this is going to be result dot, what did we call it? Oh, I need to put my, so the reason why it wasn't working is because this was empty. So of course it's not putting anything there. So what we need to do here is pass the result, which is result dot rolled number. I believe that's what we called it. Let's have a look just to verify. Yes, roll number is what goes there. So roll number, let's save it. And now let's have a look again. I'm very, very confident that this time that it will work. Okay. So now this is working remotely and it's on the server. So this is ground truth. Every player can go and click it and they will all get the result. Now this is overly simplistic. What we probably need to do is to also create a mechanism that allows us to communicate this number to the rest of the group. We will do that next time using probably a message queue and or sockets. But for now, we're gonna stop here. And in another video, what I will do is transform this into an actual microservice. Now we can say that we have created this website where we can go and roll numbers. But if we're thinking about it from a microservice perspective, we want to decouple this even more. Because right now, this design has two things in it. Has the web browser, has a web server, and has the rolling mechanism. In this case, the rolling mechanism is really cheap. It's not taking memory or anything. But what if we wanted to have like a quantum computer generate a random number? And no kidding, but that could happen. We want them to be completely separated. So in the next video, I will actually use a cloud function. And that shouldn't take more than 5 minutes, really. So see you soon.